You're looking at a ship that weighs nearly 250,800 tons, stretches longer than 3 football fields laid end to end, and carries more passengers than some small towns in America. Royal Caribbean's Legend of the Seas. The third Icon-class megaship. And everyone, every travel blogger, every cruise influencer is calling it a carbon copy of Icon and Star of the Seas. They're wrong. Dead wrong. Because buried inside this floating city are secrets that Royal Caribbean has barely whispered about. Design changes driven by thousands of real passenger complaints. A construction incident that almost made international headlines. Brand new dining experiences that literally do not exist anywhere else on Earth. And a booking strategy that could save you hundreds of dollars if you act before the rest of the world catches on. By the end of this video, you'll know things about this ship that 95% of the passengers who actually board it will never discover. So let's pull back the curtain on what Royal Caribbean doesn't want you to know. Here's what most people don't realize about Legend of the Seas. This isn't just another ship rolling off an assembly line in some factory. Royal Caribbean spent over 2 years building this vessel at the Meyer Turku shipyard in Finland, and during that painstaking process, they quietly made changes. Significant ones. Changes based on real passenger feedback from Icon of the Seas and Star of the Seas. Changes that fix genuine problems people experienced. Changes that add entirely new experiences you literally cannot find on any other cruise ship sailing the oceans right now. And then there's the name itself, which tells a fascinating story that most people completely overlook. I've spent weeks digging into every detail about this ship. Every official announcement. Every construction milestone, every crew member, interview I could find, and every update from the shipyard. What I uncovered genuinely surprised me. So whether you've already booked a sailing on Legend, you're seriously considering it, or you're just fascinated by what the modern cruise industry is capable of building, this video is going to fundamentally change how you see this ship. Let's get into it. Let's start with something that seems small on the surface, but actually reveals Royal Caribbean's entire long-term strategy, if you know how to read between the lines. Legend of the Seas is the first time in Royal Caribbean's entire 50-plus year history that the company has reused the name of a former ship. Let that sink in. They have never done this before. The original Legend of the Seas launched back in 1995 as a Vision-class vessel. She was beautiful for her era, elegant, intimate, and she sailed faithfully for Royal Caribbean for over 2 decades before being sold to Thomson Cruises in 2017. She's actually still sailing today under the name Marella Discovery 2. So why bring the Legend name back now? Why break tradition? Royal Caribbean's Chief Marketing Officer Kara Wallace offered a revealing explanation when the name was officially announced in February 2025. She explained that the Icon class as a name sets an incredibly high bar, and they needed a third ship name that genuinely fit alongside Icon and Star while also honoring everything that came before it. Think about what that statement really means. This isn't just nostalgia. This is Royal Caribbean deliberately connecting their heritage to their future. They're signaling that the Icon class isn't just their newest product line, it's the definitive chapter of their brand story. And naming this ship Legend is a declaration. It's not ship number 3 in a series. In Royal Caribbean's mind, this vessel is meant to become legendary. That kind of corporate confidence either means they know something we don't, or they're setting expectations dangerously high. Either way, it makes this ship worth paying very close attention to. Now let's talk about the raw, almost incomprehensible scale of this thing, because the numbers are genuinely staggering when you start putting them into context. Legend of the Seas comes in at approximately 250 and 800 gross tons. She's 1,198 feet long. That's 365 meters from bow to stern, nearly 50 meters wide. She rises 20 decks into the sky, contains 2,805 individual staterooms, and at double occupancy, she carries 5,610 passengers. But here's the number that really gets me every time I think about it. At full capacity, during a holiday sailing or peak summer week, this ship holds over 7,600 people on board, and that includes more than 2,350 crew members working around the clock. That's close to 10,000 human beings living, eating, sleeping, and being entertained on a single floating structure. To put that into perspective, the town I grew up in had fewer people than that. And here's something a lot of people miss when they glance at the spec sheets. Legend of the Seas is technically listed at a marginally higher gross tonnage than both Icon and Star of the Seas. The differences seem tiny on paper, but they're not accidental. Every extra ton represents design modifications, structural reinforcements, and added features that required additional space and weight. The Icon class also features a parabolic bow design, which is an engineering innovation that improves stability and provides smoother motion at sea. This is a ship that was never intended to be a photocopy of her sisters. From the very beginning, she was designed to be an evolution, a refinement, and the numbers prove it. You've probably heard about the 8 neighborhood concept that debuted so spectacularly on Icon of the Seas. Central Park with its real living trees and plants. The buzzing Royal Promenade. The family-focused Surfside Zone with its adorable rubber duck carousel. Thrill Island, where the adrenaline junkies gather. Chill Island for relaxation. The jaw-dropping Aquadome. The exclusive Suite Neighborhood. And the pool deck experience. It's a brilliant concept that fundamentally changed how cruise ships organize their public spaces. But here's what they absolutely don't tell you in the marketing materials. When Icon of the Seas launched in January 2024, passengers had opinions, strong ones, and they weren't shy about sharing them. Some of those neighborhoods felt genuinely overcrowded during peak hours. Certain traffic flow patterns between neighborhoods created frustrating bottlenecks, especially near the elevators connecting Thrill Island to the dining areas. And a few restaurant locations in specific neighborhoods were consistently overwhelmed with hour-long waits, while other dining venues in different zones sat half empty at the same time. Royal Caribbean listened. They had to. The feedback from Icon was pouring in through surveys, social media, and direct complaints. Star of the Seas was already too far along in construction to absorb major changes. But Legend's construction started with its first steel cut in January 2024, and the keel wasn't laid until October of that year. That timing gave Royal Caribbean a rare opportunity to feed real-world operational data from Icon directly into Legend's design. Industry observers report that adjustments were made to passenger flow patterns, directional signage, elevator placement strategy, and the layout of key gathering areas in at least 3 neighborhoods. The result should be a noticeably smoother day-to-day experience, particularly during embarkation day chaos and the dinner hour rush. You probably won't see Royal Caribbean advertising these changes. They're never going to put out a press release saying they fixed problems. But experienced cruisers who've sailed Icon will very likely feel the difference the moment they start exploring this ship. This is where Legend of the Seas starts to genuinely separate itself from her sister ships, and honestly, from every other cruise ship afloat. The Hollywoodland Supper Club is a brand new specialty dining venue that doesn't exist on Icon, doesn't exist on Star, and as of this moment, doesn't exist anywhere else in the entire cruise industry. It's a Legend exclusive. The concept is inspired by the golden age of Hollywood, roughly the 1910s through the 1950s. Think classic cinema. Think smoky jazz clubs. Think Humphrey Bogart and Audrey Hepburn glamour. You'll get live jazz performances weaving between courses, handcrafted cocktails designed specifically around the Hollywood theme, and a gourmet multi-course menu that's built to feel like an event, not just a meal. Now here's the hidden angle that makes this even more interesting. Specialty dining on Icon-class ships has been a real point of contention among cruisers. Some passengers love the upcharge restaurants. Others feel the premium prices don't always justify what you get on the plate, especially when the included dining options are already so strong. Hollywoodland Supper Club appears to be Royal Caribbean's direct answer to that criticism. They're not just selling food with a price tag attached, they're selling an entire evening experience. A night out. Something you'd tell friends about for months after you get home. Something worth dressing up for. And if they execute it at the level the early descriptions suggest, this could become one of the most sought-after dinner reservations in the entire Royal Caribbean fleet. My honest advice? Book it the moment your cruise planner opens for your sailing. Don't wait. Don't think about it over lunch, because once the first wave of passengers posts about this on social media, every seat will be spoken for on every sailing. Mark my words. If you sailed on Utopia of the Seas, you might have already experienced the original Royal Railway dining concept. It's an immersive train car experience where you sit inside a meticulously designed set that looks and feels like a moving luxury train, complete with vibrating floors and shifting scenery outside the windows, all while enjoying a multi-course meal. Clever, right? Well, Legend of the Seas takes that concept and completely reimagines it from the ground up. The new version is called Royal Railway, Legend Station. And instead of a single themed journey, this one takes you along the historic Silk routes. Over the course of 5 separate courses, you'll travel through China, India, Italy, and beyond. The cuisine changes with each destination. The projected scenery outside those train windows shifts. The sounds, the music, the storytelling, it all evolves as you move from one ancient trade route stop to the next. This isn't a gimmick. This is Royal Caribbean investing heavily in what the industry calls experiential dining. And it's a direct response to the growing demand from modern cruise passengers who want more than a steak dinner with an ocean view. They want memories. They want stories they can share. And Royal Railway Legend Station is explicitly designed to deliver exactly that. One former crew member I connected with described it as potentially the most ambitious dining concept Royal Caribbean has ever attempted. That's saying something for a company that puts real trees on ships. Whether it fully lives up to that kind of hype remains to be seen until the first passengers actually sit down. But the ambition alone is worth paying serious attention to. This is the cruise industry pushing creative boundaries, and Legend of the Seas is leading the charge. Now let's address something that most cruise travel influencers have completely glossed over or ignored entirely. On December 2nd, 2025, during the final stages of construction, at the Meyer Turku shipyard in Finland, a fire broke out in Legend's engine room. Let that sink in for a moment. A fire in the engine room of a ship that's designed to carry nearly 10,000 people across open ocean. Royal Caribbean officially confirmed the incident, but stated it was not expected to affect the construction timeline or the July 2026 launch date. The ship had already been floated out successfully back in September 2025 and was in the outfitting phase when the fire occurred. Work continued on schedule after the incident was resolved. But here's the thing you need to understand. Engine room fires during the construction phase are actually more common in shipbuilding than most people realize. They're almost always caused by welding sparks, electrical work in confined spaces, or paint and solvent fumes igniting in areas with limited ventilation. Shipyards like Meyer Turku have rigorous fire safety protocols specifically because they know these risks exist, and incidents like this are typically contained quickly by trained emergency teams. Does this mean Legend of the Seas is unsafe? Absolutely not. Modern cruise ships undergo some of the most stringent safety testing, classification society inspections, and sea trial protocols of any vessels on Earth before a single passenger ever steps aboard. This ship will be certified safe by multiple independent authorities before her maiden voyage. But the reason I'm telling you about this is because transparency matters. You deserve to know the full, unvarnished story of how this ship came to be, not just the glossy press releases and pretty renderings. Knowledge is power, and now you have more of it. Pay very close attention to this one, because it could directly and meaningfully affect your wallet. Legend of the Seas is making cruise history as the first Icon-class ship to ever sail European waters. Her maiden voyage departs July 11th, 2026, from Civitavecchia, the port for Rome, and she'll spend the entire summer season doing 7-night Western Mediterranean itineraries, from both Rome and Barcelona, hitting incredible ports like Naples, Palma de Mallorca, and Marseille. Now here's why this matters financially, and why almost nobody in the cruise community is talking about it loudly enough. Icon and Star of the Seas sail exclusively from Florida to the Caribbean. That's an established, high-demand market with an enormous customer base. Prices for those sailings reflect that intense demand. But Legend, sailing the Mediterranean, represents completely uncharted territory for the Icon class. Royal Caribbean is introducing a brand new, nearly 250,000-ton ship to European consumers who may not be familiar with the Icon-class experience. And what happens when any cruise line needs to fill a massive new ship in a brand new region where they have no established booking history? Promotional pricing, early booking incentives, bundled beverage package deals, onboard credit offers. We're already seeing rates for Legends Mediterranean sailings come in notably competitive compared to what you'd pay for Icon or Star doing their standard Caribbean runs. If you've ever dreamed of experiencing what an Icon-class ship has to offer but thought the prices were simply out of your reach, Legends' European debut season might be the window of opportunity you've been waiting for, but that window has an expiration date. Once the first wave of review videos and passenger testimonials drop after July, those introductory prices are going to climb. Fast! Don't say I didn't warn you. The Category 6 water park returns on Legend, and yes, it's still billed as the largest water park at sea. 6 record-breaking water slides, including the first open free-fall water slide you'll find on any cruise ship and the first mat racing duo at sea. It's visually spectacular and a massive draw for families. But here's what changed beneath the surface. On Icon of the Seas, one of the most consistent passenger complaints about Category 6 was the wait times. People reported standing in line for 45 minutes to an hour, or more for the popular slides during afternoon peak hours. The physical layout created congestion near the entry points. The queue management system wasn't fully optimized for the sheer volume of passengers wanting to ride simultaneously, and on sea days when everyone is on board, the water park became a bottleneck that frustrated parents and thrill seekers alike. Legends' version of Category 6 addresses these pain points directly. The physical footprint and slide count remain similar, but the queue flow design, entry point positioning, and capacity management protocols have been refined based on over a full year of operational data from Icon's sailings. Royal Caribbean had the luxury of watching how tens of thousands of passengers actually moved through that water park space, where the choke points formed, and which times of day were most problematic. Will the lines disappear entirely on Legend? Let's be realistic, no. You're still putting several thousand thrill-seeking families near a limited number of water slides on a sea day. But the experience should be meaningfully, noticeably better. And here's a pro tip from cruisers who've already mastered the Icon-class water park strategy. Hit it right when the slides open in the morning, usually around 9 a.m., or during the main dinner seating rush between 6 and 7:30 p.m. Those two windows consistently have the shortest waits across every Icon-class sailing. Here's where Royal Caribbean is taking their biggest, boldest creative risk on Legend of the Seas. And depending on how it lands, it could change how the entire cruise industry thinks about onboard entertainment. The headline show is a full theatrical adaptation of Roald Dahl's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Yes, the beloved Broadway musical, performed live, at sea, every sailing. Think about the production value required to pull something like that off on a ship that's pitching and rolling in ocean swells. The elaborate sets, the costumes, the special effects, the caliber of performers who can deliver night after night in a moving theater. This is not your typical cruise ship song and dance review with sequined costumes and greatest hits medleys. This is legitimate, Broadway caliber theatrical production on a floating stage. And alongside Charlie, Legend will debut America's Got Talent Live, bringing the electric energy and interactive format of one of the most watched television shows in American history directly onto the ship. Passengers get to watch live auditions, react in real time, and become part of the show. These are massive creative swings, and they represent a fundamental philosophical shift in how Royal Caribbean thinks about the entertainment experience on board their ships. They're no longer competing only with other cruise lines for your evening attention. They're competing with Broadway. They're competing with Las Vegas residency shows. They're competing with whatever you do on a Saturday night in New York or London or any major city in the world. If Charlie and the Chocolate Factory delivers on its potential, it could single-handedly become a reason why people choose to book Legend over her sister ships. That has essentially never happened before in the cruise industry. A single show-driving ship selection, but this one genuinely might do it. Keep your eye on this. Let's talk about the most over-the-top, jaw-dropping accommodation on the entire ship. The Ultimate Family Townhouse is a 3-story suite. 3 stories, inside a cruise ship cabin. Wrap your mind around that. It has a slide built directly into the suite itself. Your kids can literally slide from one level to another without ever leaving the room. You get a dedicated royal genie, which is essentially a personal concierge who handles absolutely everything, from snagging impossible restaurant reservations to planning surprise birthday celebrations to arranging priority embarkation and show seating. You get complimentary access to specialty dining venues. Priority boarding. The works. Now, the price tag on the Ultimate Family Townhouse is going to make most people's eyes water. We're talking well into 5 figures per person on peak season sailings. Holiday weeks, even higher. It sounds absolutely insane. But here's the hidden value calculation that almost nobody takes the time to actually run. When you factor in the complimentary specialty dining that's included for every townhouse guest across the entire sailing, plus the beverage package inclusions, plus the premium internet package, plus the Royal Genie concierge service, plus priority access to shows, activities, and water slides, the effective cost gap between the townhouse experience and booking a standard suite, and then purchasing all of those add-ons individually, is dramatically smaller than the sticker price suggests. For a multi-generational family trip with 8 to 10 people, especially over a Thanksgiving, Christmas, or spring break sailing, you could actually come out financially ahead compared to booking separate standard cabins and loading everyone up with drink packages and dining plans. Seriously, run the numbers yourself before you dismiss the townhouse as rich people fantasy. You might genuinely surprise yourself. This next point is subtle, and most passengers won't even notice it. But it tells you everything about where Royal Caribbean is strategically headed over the next 5 years. Both Icon and Star of the Seas Sail standardized 7-night Caribbean itineraries. That's been the model since they launched. Clean, predictable, easy to market and sell. Legend breaks that pattern completely. After her Mediterranean summer season, Legend repositions to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, with a dramatic 13-day transatlantic crossing departing Barcelona on October 25th, 2026. And from Fort Lauderdale starting in November, she'll offer 6-night Western Caribbean, sailings visiting Coco Cay, Falmouth in Jamaica, and Labadee in Haiti, alongside 8-night Southern Caribbean voyages hitting Curacao, Aruba, Cabo Rojo, and Coco Cay. 6 and 8 nights, not 7. Why does this seemingly minor scheduling detail matter so much? Because Royal Caribbean is actively testing flexible itinerary lengths on their most premium, most expensive class of ship. The 6-night option opens the door for travelers who can't commit to a full week away from work or family obligations, but still want the Icon class experience. The 8-night option deliberately targets the Southern Caribbean, which is a first for any Icon class ship and taps directly into a market of experienced cruisers who've already sailed the Western Caribbean routes multiple times and are hungry for something new. This isn't random. This is Royal Caribbean learning in real time, adapting their strategy and expanding what the Icon class represents. And it almost certainly signals that the 4th Icon class ship, Hero of the Seas, arriving in 2027, will push even further into new itinerary lengths, new home ports, and new regions. Legend is the testing ground. Pay attention to what they learn. All right, let's close the main content with the most practical information in this entire video. The stuff that could put real money back in your pocket. First, if you're eyeing the Mediterranean sailings for summer 2026, book now, not next month. Not after you watch 3 more comparison videos. Now. Those inaugural European prices for an Icon class experience are historically competitive, and they will not survive the tsunami of positive reviews and social media content that's going to flood the internet the moment this ship starts sailing in July. Early bookers win. Period. Second, seriously consider the repositioning transatlantic cruise. That 13-day crossing from Barcelona to Fort Lauderdale on October 25th, 2026 is one of the most intriguing sailings on Legend's entire schedule. Transatlantic repositioning voyages are almost always priced lower on a per-night basis than standard port-intensive itineraries because they include multiple consecutive sea days. But think about that on an Icon-class ship with this much to do on board. Sea days on Legend aren't boring stretches of empty ocean. They're your chance to explore every neighborhood, hit the water park without crowds, try every restaurant, and actually enjoy the ship without competing with port days. For the right traveler, that transatlantic could be the single best value sailing Royal Caribbean offers in all of 2026. Third, cabin selection strategy. Here's what the vast majority of passengers don't know to ask about. On Icon-class ships, the midship staterooms on decks 8 through 12 offer the best combination of reduced ship motion, proximity to the main elevator banks, and natural noise insulation from both the pool decks above and the theater and entertainment venues below. But here's the real insider pick. Look specifically for ocean view balcony cabins that face the ship's interior neighborhoods like Central Park rather than the open ocean. You still get a balcony. You still get a gorgeous view, often of lush greenery and the neighborhood activity below. But your cabin will be quieter than an ocean-facing room because there's no wave noise or wind hitting your balcony door. It's the cabin type that experienced, repeat Icon-class cruisers consistently recommend, and it frequently books at the same price, or occasionally even less than a standard outward-facing balcony. That's an upgrade in experience for equal or less money. Finally, don't overlook booking directly through Royal Caribbean's website and taking advantage of their price adjustment policies. If the price of your sailing drops after you've already booked, you can often secure onboard credit or a rate adjustment by contacting them. It's essentially free price protection. Combine that with any ongoing promotional offers like beverage packages or internet bundles at booking, and you can lock in a deal that gets better over time instead of worse. Smart cruisers know this. Now you do too. So let's bring this all together. Legend of the Seas isn't just another big ship rolling out of a Finnish shipyard. It's a 250,800-ton statement of intent about where the cruise industry is heading. A resurrected name that deliberately honors Royal Caribbean's 5-decade history while launching their boldest vision of the future. The first Icon-class ship to conquer European waters. A floating entertainment complex with legitimate Broadway-caliber productions and dining experiences you literally cannot find anywhere else on Earth. And critically, it's a ship built with real fixes and meaningful refinements driven by actual passenger feedback from Icon and Star of the Seas. Here are the 5 things you absolutely need to remember from everything we just covered. 1. Hollywoodland Supper Club and Royal Railway Legend Station are exclusive to this ship and nowhere else. Book them the instant your cruise planner opens. 2. The Mediterranean inaugural pricing represents the best deal you'll find on any Icon-class experience in 2026, and it won't last. 3. The water park queues and neighborhood traffic flows have been redesigned using real operational data. 4. Midship interior-facing balcony cabins on decks 8 through 12 are the smart traveler's secret. And 5. The October Transatlantic Repositioning Cruise is a hidden gem that savvy cruisers are already quietly booking. You walked into this video thinking Legend of the Seas was just Icon's younger sister wearing the same outfit. Now you know the real story. This ship has its own identity, its own exclusive innovations, its own strategic purpose in Royal Caribbean's fleet. And you're now ahead of almost every single passenger who'll eventually walk up that gangway in Rome or Barcelona or Fort Lauderdale. If this deep dive changed how you think about Legend of the Seas, hit subscribe. I've got detailed ship breakdowns, money-saving booking strategies, and insider cruise secrets coming every single week. Drop a comment below and tell me, are you planning to book Legend for the Mediterranean summer season, or are you holding out for the Caribbean sailings? I'd genuinely love to hear what you're thinking. And smash that thumbs up button so more cruisers can discover what most people are completely missing about this incredible ship. And speaking of what's coming next, I'm already working on a deep dive into Hero of the Seas, the 4th Icon-class ship arriving in 2027, and trust me, what Royal Caribbean has planned for that one is going to blow your mind. Stay tuned.